Welcome to the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast, where we cover anything related to behavior change that will increase your long-term wellness and happiness. And now, here are your hosts, personal trainer and RNs, Matt and Jenna Lane.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast. My name is Matt.
And my name's Jenna.
This here podcast is all about implementing behavior change for your long-term wellness and happiness. And today we have a topic that is close to both of our hearts because we've heard it a lot of times. I don't want to give that up for wellness. Before we dive into the topic at hand, for the first 8 weeks from the launch of this podcast, if you review this podcast, whether it be negative or positive feedback, we just want your honest feedback on iTunes, we're going to send you a Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast t-shirt. Just drop me a line at MattLaneFitness@gmail.com. Thank you for the review, and we'll send you a shirt. Jenna, how do you feel about this topic?
It's something close, near and dear to our hearts. It's something that I've struggled with for years, that I'm a little stubborn about, that you've finally gotten through my head. So that's always something that we want to talk about here on the podcast is our own personal struggles and how we are working to overcome them. And this is certainly one of them.
If this is your first time tuning in to this show, thank you for being here. Jenna and I are both registered nurses, and I am a personal trainer. We both together run MattLaneFitness. There's also a YouTube channel and all sorts of stuff. This is our attempt in the podcasting world to bring value to you. In every episode, we try to, again, focus on that behavior change, and this is a realm that we feel we can dive into. At each point in the intro of the show, we always hit you with our gratitude point. It's simply a point that we don't make up, but we have in our heads in the moment. So literally right now we are thinking about what is our gratitude point? What is something we're grateful for today? It can be something big, something small. I encourage you to do the same thing. Try to do it every single day. It gives you perspective. It can recalibrate your way of thinking when you may be in that negative headspace of, oh man, everything's bad. Think of something that's really good that you're grateful for. And I'll tell you that right now, off the top of my head, what I'm thinking of is the dogs in the other room. We have 3 American Bulldogs that I had to stop recording, and we came back to it because they're in there whining because they want to be in here with us, but we're dog lovers, and I'm so happy to have them. They're the greatest security system that there is, and they bring us so much happiness. I'm grateful for the dogs just simply having them.
Yep, and they snore too loud to be in here in the podcast room with us.
Yep, we tried it. It wasn't going to work.
Yeah, you could very easily hear them snoring in the background.
Yeah, so I'm grateful for those dogs. They're awesome. Roman, Nova, and Lily. If you're listening, thank you. Love you. You never know.
So I think the thing that I want to bring up today that I'm grateful for is actually related to the topic of Matt being persistent over the years and trying to change my perspective from what I'm focused on giving up to really changing the focus to what I'm gaining by changing my behavior.
It's tough. I'm a bit of an obsessive person.
Yes, you are.
Some things come a little bit easier for me when it comes to implementing something over and over again. I'm definitely not perfect because I have ADD and I can get sidetracked. But when my heart is into something, man, I just go full force. So I'm also grateful for that. But having said that, yeah, I mean, I think that I sort of exude some of the things like what I'm typically doing. You tend to gravitate towards because it's so much easier when one person is doing one thing in the household. Somebody else can do the same thing. So, like in the past when I've been bulking, like you're like, oh crap, like I'm afraid I'm gonna start bulking with you. So, but I'm glad I'm glad I've had that rub off effect on you.
Yeah, you're definitely the kind of person who you make a decision and the very next day you can make a decision to completely overhaul something major and stick to it long term, where I think the rest of the world who's normal,
not obsessive, sure,
has trouble doing that.
Yeah.
So it takes those small steps over time where you can just totally change and be fine with it and stick to it.
Yeah, and I don't want to put myself on a pedestal here. I mean, trust me, there's a lot of conversations that Jenna has to have about me staying on whatever course I'm doing. You know, I think it's just the point of knowing, like, I'm not going to be perfect at it, but there is not an option to quit. So what are we talking about here? I don't want to give that up for wellness. And I say give that up in quotation because we started looking back at what did we really give up for wellness? And wellness, I feel, is all inclusive. It can be your finances. It can be work-life balance. It can be fitness. It can be health. I mean, it can be such an array of things. Whatever is wellness to you, that's what it is.
And I think the reason why we want to talk about this, we've sat and talked about our conversations with people that we see day to day. And a common thread of conversation is, oh, I would do that. I admire you doing this or that, but I don't want to give up X, Y, and Z. And that's why I don't want to live the life that you live. They focus on what they would have to give up and not what they would actually gain in the process.
The benefits they'd gain. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You know, we typically go through and have sort of a game plan of this. Jenna has sort of some points that she's going to make, and I'm going to make some points as well. But the first thing I can think of that looking back into fitness, so sort of my story to give you context, in 2011, I got in an altercation in a parking lot. I was about 135 pounds soaking wet. And then, you know, I easily could have been killed. So the next day I got in the gym and was like, I'm going to change my body. I changed my body. It led to not even 10 years. Now, somewhere around there, I've been doing fitness for about 10 years. And it changed my mind. And I don't know if it was really from my standpoint of what I'm giving up. I looked at it as I'm gaining things. In the process, though, looking back, yeah, I gave up quite a bit of different things. And I think immediately the thing I realized I gave up was being comfortable. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable and, you know, pushing my body, which sort of formed my mind. What do you got on that? The comfort piece.
That's true.
Yeah.
Most people are very comfortable in their comfort zone, so that's why it is their comfort zone. But you really don't grow in your comfort zone. You become stagnant.
Exactly. Yeah. I think from that the physical, I'm talking, you know, specific fitness and physical changes here and whatnot, that led to that mental change. And then it eventually led to me believing I could do more. So while I was giving up comfort, I was giving up chilling or sleeping in or whatever, I started growing and I started gaining more. I think that I gave up mediocrity. I think I gave up, it's the status quo to be, you know, unhealthy, to be at the house and just sort of chilling. It's not normal to be fit. If you are fit, you're looked at as a little bit more of an outcast than I think most. I don't think you're banished to society, but you're just looked at differently.
Yeah, and I think one of the common themes there is that the thought is that I don't want to give up my time with my friends or family and spend all of my time in the gym.
Sure.
Just taking it down to basics there of I don't want to spend all my time lifting weights or spend time in the gym. And I hear that I don't want to spend, 8 hours a week in the gym.
Yeah.
But honestly, Matt, what you spend 3 hours a week in the gym? 1 hour, 3 times a week?
Depends on the training cycle that I'm in, but yeah, exactly.
So, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Over 7 days.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be at the gym. You can work out at home. But I think a point there is it's a common misconception that to be fit, you have to spend all of your time doing it. And that's just not true.
3 to 5 hours for me, 3 to 5 hours a week out of 168 hours in a week really puts it into perspective for you of, what it takes. You talk about it all the time. You say it all the time that it's small changes. It's little changes. So the things that you're giving up, I would ask, can you reframe what you're giving up? That's the concept of this podcast of saying what we quote unquote gave up, we really gained so much.
Right. And it's letting the concept of what's so important to you go and gaining perspective of what you could gain. If you continuously focus on the negative, that's all you're going to see. But if you open up your mind a little bit and really realize what you gain with the very little that you give up, the reward certainly outweighs the risk.
Without a doubt. So you hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. I don't want to give that up. I think a really common thing as far as nutrition, because that's the biggest piece of physical fitness. I'm talking specifically
Right.
the body here. Someone will say, like, I love donuts. Like, I love donuts. I am not giving them up. I'm not asking you to give up donuts. I mean, there's such a thing as flexible nutrition, which is what Jenna and I practice, which means
Right.
you eat a certain amount of quote unquote what you want, with being in reason, and then you stick to more whole foods. And it's just like that comparison of 3 to 5 hours out of a 168-hour week. You don't have to eat perfect every single day. You really don't. I mean, if you're doing moderately well 6 days a week and the seventh day, well, I didn't do so great. Look at that. You had 6 out of 7 wins in a week. So just keep that going. It's the consistency that truly builds a healthy body. That's what builds wellness.
Yeah, those slow, small changes help you gain perspective and help you change over time. And I know that we've said that 1,000 times on this podcast, but you can apply that to any aspect of your life and truly make those small, sustainable changes. So you don't have to give up the foods that you like. Make some small adjustments. So rather than, eating 3 donuts, you eat 1. That makes a big difference over time.
Absolutely. We constantly, can I say we anymore? We have constantly gotten, better at this. And we've had times where we've gotten worse. I mean, actually here recently, we've been eating a little bit more sugar than we normally would. But we know how to recalibrate. And the thing is,
Right.
like, are you eating a whole cake, or are you eating, some yogurt with some chocolate on it? I mean, it's truly making, like you said, those incremental changes.
Right. And I think sometimes if you really break it down, you're giving up eating donuts, for example. We've used that quite a bit. You're giving that up. Well, you break it down to really, what are you giving up? Well, you're giving up 300 calories every day or several times a week. Over time, what you really give up is being more overweight than you were. You're giving up self-loathing. What you're really gaining is health and confidence. It's those small changes over time where it doesn't have to be a total life overhaul. It's just those small changes to where you're giving up some of the bad habits and gaining some better ones.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say you're giving up bad habits.
Right. And some of the other things that I hear, I don't want to give up, going out with my friends. Well, that's not anything we've ever asked you to give up, nor will anyone ask you to give up. It's those small changes of, rather than having 4 beers and an appetizer and a dessert, you get a soda. You don't even have to go all the way down to water,
Right.
And then just an entree. Well, what do you give up? Not really much.
No.
You still get to go out with your friends. You still have a good time. You're not sitting at home wishing you were going out. But what do you give up? Those extra calories, the extra money you spent. What are you gaining? Getting out of debt or not getting into as much debt. It's that snowball of really what you're giving up is minor in the long run compared to what you're gaining.
I will tell you that if you can change your mindset, you'll really start. I know what we did. We changed our mindset about what we were giving up, and again, seeing what we gained, it created self-awareness. It created this piece of, when we started going out with friends and drinking water rather than ordering drinks, or getting an appetizer and rather than getting food, it started making us realize, well, why were we doing that in the first place? Like, why was that? Because it's nobody when we were eating was like, oh my God, you're not getting food. Like, it wasn't like we were ostracized. Like, sure, our friends were like, hey, you're not going to eat. We're like, nah, we're just, not feeling it, or, we're watching our budget. And that was it. There wasn't like this, oh my God moment. Holy crap.
Right. And that's a multifaceted decision. So you're getting out of your comfort zone by not ordering the same things that everyone else is ordering. You're still having time with your friends. You're still having that time out. You're not stuck at home eating, almonds and a bag of lettuce. Like, I think the common misconception is.
True.
But it's that perspective of not focusing on, I can't do that because I'm trying to be better. I can't do that. I can't eat that. I can't spend my time doing that. Really change your mind from an I can't mentality to I'm going to do this so I can do that. And that really helps you stay focused, I think.
I really feel like when you stop looking at it as that, I give that up, you're giving up ignorance. You really are, because I feel like on the other side of this fence is like wisdom. Like that's how I look at it. Like, you're gaining wisdom. You're giving up ignorance. You're giving up the ways of what you've been doing that you've been comfortable with. You're giving up that. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's such an awesome thing to see the growth in it.
Yeah. You're also giving up people pleasing.
My God. Yeah.
You're giving up, and what's the result of people pleasing is self-loathing.
Absolutely.
Unhappiness with yourself. That's truly what you're giving up, and that's worth being different.
Yeah. I don't think that do you think I intentionally go out and do things differently just to be seen as different? Do you think I do that?
No, I just think you are unique. You're different.
Okay. So, and again, that's not to put me on a pedestal, but like,
because it's in the good ways and the bad ways that you're different.
Well, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a source of pride in knowing that I am different. I am unique. But I don't do it to be seen, if that makes sense.
Right. And that's something that has made me very self-conscious and almost frustrated.
Don't say almost. You know exactly what. It's not almost about it. It's frustrated. Absolutely.
Because I'm very much a people pleaser. I don't like to be seen as sticking out. I don't like to have attention brought to me in what I feel is an uncomfortable light. I like to just go right along with the flow and not do anything different than the norm. And Matt is quite the opposite. And not because he's trying to show out. It's just his personality. He's okay with being different. He always has been. And I admire that about you. But I've also really hated that about you sometimes.
You made an example before we hopped on the mics. You said something about chicken. Is that what I remember?
Yeah. So that's one example.
Just to give it, context.
Yeah. So, when we started this change, Matt, of course, started first as far as eating differently and eating healthier.
That was in 2014 when I started meal prepping.
Yeah. So we still wanted to go on dates and do the things that we loved. And so we would go out to eat because that's something that I love to do, is just be out and people watch and, eat good food. And so we would go out and I would order what I would want. And then Matt would always ask the waitress, can I just get a plain piece of chicken and some plain broccoli? No seasoning, no butter, no toppings, just plain. And I don't know why that just made me so uncomfortable.
I think just because it's different. And
yeah.
I will say that in 2014, I was much more ignorant to what flexible nutrition was. That was a time that I thought, like most, that it had to be chicken. It had to be broccoli. So that was from a time where I wasn't as educated as I am now. But, when I'm in prep mode, when I'm working on a photo shoot or something like that, yeah, don't get it twisted, folks. Like that's who I am still. So, yeah. What else you got?
So I think it's just a perspective of, excuse me, things that I personally have, quote unquote, given up, which I've really gained. And I think one of those, just for a personal example, when we were trying to get our finances in order, I stuck to the meal prepping that you made, Matt. better than I had previously. So the group of friends that I had at work at the time, we ordered out every weekend that we worked. We ordered out. We had food brought to work every weekend, and it wasn't like,
What kind of food?
it was sushi. It was, giant chicken salads. It was not uncommon to spend $40 on lunch for sushi to be brought in for each person. And when we started trying to get our finances in order, we really, buckled down on the meal prepping. I stopped ordering out every weekend with my friends, and they noticed. They didn't, they weren't like, I can't believe you're not doing that. But, several weekends in, and I had declined to order out. One weekend they ordered and they didn't ask me, and I really got my feelings hurt. But so when I confronted them, like, why aren't you including me? They were like, well, you've changed. You don't order out anymore. You're meal prepping. It was just very factual, and it made me realize they're watching, and it's not that they disapprove. They've just approved of, okay, well, you've changed, and that's just the way it is. And it made me realize you can change and not be so outrageous about it, and people are just going to notice and continue on. Changing doesn't mean everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Which is how I've always felt, is that it's me changing anything that I do is just going to be so outrageously different that people aren't going to accept me anymore.
Yeah, and as you were just talking, I was thinking to myself, you never know who's watching. You may positively impact someone, because I know that there's been a few people that have come back to you and been like, that makes total sense. Like, I'm going to start doing that. You, the listener, you may positively impact someone by just doing you. So that's kind of a cool concept that just actually popped up in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know who's watching. So just do you.
Another thing, thinking back, that I guess I wasn't aware of then, I gave up immediate gratification. I learned patience.
That's a really tough one.
That is a really tough one. Patience is still something that I deal with. I don't know if that's a millennial thing. I don't know if that's an ADD thing. Whatever I want to blame it on. Immediate gratification, man. Delaying gratification. There is like so much growth that I have found in that. Just being able to look at the long game, not worrying about the short term, looking at the big picture, whichever way you want to frame it. Postponing gratification can make you grow exponentially.
Absolutely. And a way to be able to stick to that is to establish what is your long-term goal and work backwards from that. Because if you don't look at the long game, you're never going to get your short game in order.
Exactly. So I'm wondering right now, you, the listener, think about for just a split second, what is it that you don't want to quote unquote give up for wellness?
Yeah, it might be something very simple. It might be really holding you back from some really significant life changes.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's impacted us in so many different ways. We were actually sort of thinking about pieces and topics for this actual episode, and it was just so vast. I mean, I could talk on it forever about how many different ways, and I think that there's going to be growths for you that'll obviously be different than us. You never know like what it will actually lead to. Like, I know without a doubt that fitness, wellness, me being able to adopt these concepts that we already mentioned, it's made me meet incredible people. It's formed my life and your life, Jenna, to be completely different than it would have been had we stayed in that cocoon, that way that we thought.
Right. And it starts a cascade of changes. So, for example, from my journey, I gave up going to Wendy's and Subway every day at work.
Oh, yeah.
For meal prepping.
That's right.
Strictly because of finances. But what I ended up giving up was I lost weight unintentionally.
Yep.
So I gave up being so overweight, which means I gave up being so unhappy with myself, which means I gave up my stubbornness about changing other things. And when you really think about what you give up, the small things that you're holding on to as what you feel like, quote unquote, makes you so happy is really what's holding you back. So what you're giving up,
yep,
is your stubbornness, your self-loathing, your unhappiness, and small incremental changes that have these long-term consequences of being better, being healthier, and your long-term wellness and happiness.
You mentioned a story of you ran into someone not too long ago that, they were talking about what they have to do in order to get healthy, specifically when it came to the food. Tell them that.
Oh, yeah. So I overheard a conversation of someone who is trying to lose weight for a specific event coming up, and she was sitting there talking to a friend about how she was making this list from this specific diet that she decided to go on, and it was...
And by the way, if you know nothing about MattLaneFitness, who we are, I do not like diets. I don't like the 80-day cleanse or the teabag diet or whatever you're talking about. I believe in long-term wellness and happiness. Go ahead.
Right. It's sustainable changes, not a 30-day something, because then you're just going to go right back to
exactly
what you were doing before. But she was sitting there going over this long grocery list of this expensive groceries, how many times a day she has to drink this tea and eat this like Melba toast and all kinds of stuff that nobody's going to stick to. That stuff doesn't taste good. And how it was just so expensive and so time consuming. And the whole time I was like, I just got to bite my tongue, because she's not going to stick to that.
Yeah.
That's not, even if she sticks to it till that event, she's not going to stick to it long term, and then she's just going to go right back because she doesn't enjoy that. And you have to choose something that you're going to enjoy, or you are not going to stick to it.
Exactly. I mean, if you can audit yourself, and just like this person that you ran into, just ask yourself the simple question: can I maintain this the rest of my life? There's your answer if it's going to work.
Right.
That's it.
Yep. It's just like New Year's resolutions. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, go to the gym 6 days a week. Well, no, you're not.
Yeah,
if you don't go to the gym now, just because it's January 1st doesn't mean you're going to magically start enjoying the gym. You don't have to do these giant changes all at once, because most likely, unless you're Matt Lane, you aren't going to stick to them.
Well, yeah.
It's very small changes that add up over time. And I know you're going to hear us say that over and over and over again on this podcast and in our videos and our posts, across the spectrum with MattLaneFitness. It's small changes over time, but you apply that to any aspect of your life and it's going to work.
Yeah. And there's so many different ways to go about, these things that you're quote unquote giving up, reframing it and being like, all right, well, this is what I need to do. Then there's a billion things. There's just so many different ways to go at wellness. And I have always just asked myself and any of the clients I've ever worked with, are you going to stick to this? Are you logically going to stick to this? If you made this change tomorrow, would you be doing it a year from now? And if the answer is no, then it's not for you. Having said that, can you go to the gym 6 days a week? Sure you can, without a doubt. But you gotta get there once a week at least. And if you can't do that, if you're gonna falter in only a week or two, then you can't be that strict. It has to be sustainable. I could say it in a billion different ways, but just make it sustainable.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think in conclusion, small incremental changes, changing your mindset from what I'm giving up to what am I going to gain, and then focusing on the long game, and then work backwards from there about what goals you want to accomplish, how you're going to get there, and stick to those steps. And that's going to change your short game.
Education is everything. Self-educate. If you don't know where to start, follow MattLaneFitness on YouTube. And by all means, I am not the end-all be-all. We are not the end-all be-all. We do not know it all. This is just our experience, what we've learned. There are plenty of YouTubers out there. There's plenty of things on Google. There's so much free information out there to learn how to change all this. So find out what works for you and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made a t-shirt design here the last couple of days. Matt taught me how to use a logo maker app. And I think he regrets it because I have sent him a bunch of logos for t-shirts.
We now have quite a few more designs in our apparel line.
But the one that comes to mind with this conversation is the one that says, learn to rest, not quit.
That's very... Oh. Maybe that's what I'm going to title this episode. That's really good.
Because you're going to falter. You're going to get tired. You're going to
emotionally eat.
Yes, you're going to mess up. And guess what? We do too.
Absolutely.
On a daily basis.
Absolutely.
We are far from perfect. But rather than saying, I just can't do it and giving up, because I've done that how many times with going to the gym.
Yeah.
And, I do it on a weekly, if not daily basis with my nutrition.
Yeah.
But
I ate 3 cupcakes yesterday. I'm a horrible person. I'm going to hell.
Yeah. No. But learn to rest and regroup rather than saying, well, I messed up, so I can't do it.
Let's
and then
blow
just
it
quit.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I quote unquote messed up yesterday. So today I'm getting back at it.
Yep. Learn to rest, not quit.
Just reframe it, guys. Is it give that up or I'm going to gain that? Thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.
This has been the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast. We want to thank you for listening and invite you to subscribe to the show as well. And follow MattLaneFitness on YouTube. Until next time, you don't have to be perfect. Just be better than yesterday every day.